Welcome to the Bold Podcast. I'm Todd Bertsch, entrepreneur, mental fitness coach, and keynote speaker. I believe every person has a spark, but life, pressure, and doubt have a way of dimming it. Here's the good news. You can reignite it at any moment. That's what this podcast is all about. When you fuel your spark, everything changes. Let's ignite it together. Today, we're going to talk about what actually drives performance. And it's not what most leaders think. Our guest, Chris Salem, EQ and communication expert, helps leaders unlock growth in sales, culture, and results by mastering one thing most overlook: emotional intelligence. Because here's the truth. If you don't understand what's driving your behavior, your communication, and your decisions under pressure, you're not leading, you're reacting. From quieting your inner critic to leading high-performing teams, this conversation is all about the inner work that powers everything on the outside. I'm so excited for this conversation. Chris, welcome to the Bolt Podcast, my friend.
Thank you so much for the warm introduction, and I am looking forward to serving your community here today.
Absolutely. Man, so I want to go back. What I usually do, Chris, at the beginning is really dig into your journey a little bit, because I'm always very curious and interested how people end up where they are today. And you've had a really great career and it's still going, but you started off in purchasing materials management and now you're an EQ and communications expert. So how does that happen? Was there a glimpse into, some event or milestone where you're like, oh man, I need to pivot here? So give us the highlights.
Well, wow, and it's hard to believe to say that. God, I had a major in purchase and materials management, and I actually was in purchase and materials management, but many years ago. So this is going back to 1990 to about 1994, 95 timeframe. So it's been over 30 years. It's hard to believe, but nonetheless, what took me down that path is that I had normally had an interest in, technology, manufacturing at the time. And when I had a degree in purchase and materials management, I, worked for an aerospace company. That was my first job out of college from Arizona State University. And, I enjoyed it for the first few years. But during that time, manufacturing was a very bureaucratic type of environment, very old school, how they led. And a lot of times when I was in my role as a chief buyer, I did my job well, yet I always had the personality that I should be the person on the other side of the table. And that was the suppliers that were working with us on multi-million-dollar deals with the Blackhawk and all these Seahawk, all these different programs that we were involved at the time. So I knew that my ability to communicate very well lended itself better if I were on the other side of the table, the person that was creating value, that was getting to know what was really important to the customer that I was serving. So in this case, I didn't realize it yet when I had graduated. And matter of fact, didn't even realize it until the first few years in that I had these skills that I should have been on the other side. And thus what prompted me to leave purchasing and jump in full, with both feet into sales. And in this case, I went into a completely different industry due to the fact that with all the issues that were happening in that type of industry at the time, we'll leave it at that. But nonetheless, got into sales and I never looked back. So I've been involved in working, ever since from a sales capacity, which took my way up to doing, CRO work, chief revenue officer, and then also running my own businesses. And up until the last 14 years now, just passing this knowledge and helping other business owners and high performers really step up. And it was through that time that I got to really know myself. I went through a major life transition back in late 1999, started in late 1999 when my father died of cancer at the age of 56. At that point, I had been struggling with 12 years of addiction, and really, while I was a hunter. While I was a producer. I was struggling personally, and the rest of my life was more or less falling apart. But that life changing moment, my father passed away when I had this conversation that still to this day wasn't actually a verbal conversation, but I could hear him talking to me the day before he died. It was in a different way that I can't explain to this day, but I heard him speaking to me.
Wow.
And it changed the course of my life. I got sober. I, really immersed myself into the area of emotional intelligence. At the time, I wouldn't say that it was in the infancy stage, but the book had came out in 1993, but yet not a lot of people had embraced it. But nonetheless, I worked on myself for a good 3.5 years to rewire my thinking. And this was somebody who, again, who overcame addiction, who had an addictive mindset, someone who was born with ADHD, and how would I go about navigating to offset those symptoms because I was easily distracted and agitated. And as a result of that, I was able to really raise my level of EQ, the ability to communicate at a higher level than I've ever had with myself, learning to love myself for who I am, that I didn't require to be validated by anyone else. And as a result of that, that helped me tremendously in a few businesses that I had co-founded and also was successful in selling, which led me up to this day, not only understanding myself, but understanding different types of people from different personality, generational, culture, and ethnic types, and how to adapt how we communicate neurologistically and subconsciously to connect to how they process information. And ever since then, I've been teaching businesses and individuals how to do that and how to reduce the number of touch points on converting and closing more business as a result of it, building better brand awareness and a brand image, and at the same token, creating more valuable customer experiences along the way. And of course, this lends itself to raising capital, to getting stakeholder buy-in, you name it. And I've been doing this now for 14 years, and I've been speaking on it for over 26 years as a professional keynote and breakout speaker.
Wow. There's a lot there, Chris. First off, thank you for sharing your story and getting vulnerable with us and our listeners. Congratulations to you for overcoming that addiction. I know you and I had a sidebar before, and
mine was it wasn't one particular thing like alcohol or drugs. It was a combination of alcohol, drugs, but it was really anger. I was addicted to anger, and the anger all stemmed to the root cause of my self-limiting beliefs, the need for validation that I didn't get growing up from my father. I had to come to terms with that. And my dad gave me the greatest gift that he was never able to give me when I was growing up. And that was in that moment. And that changed my life and career for the better. That was his parting gift, leaving this planet, and made up for all those years that I had been struggling. And I don't blame my father. My father was a product of his own upbringing and environment, just like I was. But it was up to me, my responsibility to make those changes as an adult. And I did it. And thank God I was able to change that so there was no more dysfunction with my family as I had children.
Yeah, I can absolutely relate, Chris. Wow, in so many ways. I grew up in a very negative environment. I mean, good family, great parents, but my mother, she got dealt a bad set of cards, a bad hand, and grew up with alcoholic parents. They both died of alcoholism. And so she just didn't know any better. She didn't drink at all, but it was just that negative, that anger that she had that then kind of infused to me. So I was constantly full of that anger as well and needing that validation, that affirmation And also being short all my life, I think as I reflect back, it was a big piece, like always trying to make it, to make the team, to get picked, to be chosen, to say, oh man, you're good enough, Todd. And then,
Late to the shortness. I'm not tall either, Todd. I'm 5'9", and nowadays, that back in the day, that used to be an average height. Nowadays, it's like these
yeah,
kids are like over.
right,
My son's got 4 inches on me.
right, exactly. And, so what it comes back to though is just making that choice. And we talk a lot about that on the show, and I infuse a lot of that into my talks. It's change, and change is uncomfortable for all of us, right? But there comes a point where we are in a position to make a choice, but we have to make it, and we have to make it for us. And a lot of what I talk about, Chris, and we talked a little bit about it, positive intelligence, the mental fitness program, a lot of what you were saying is truly the core of that book, or at least the program. And that is about having that unconditional love for yourself. In fact, I just had a cohort, we had a session last week that was all about the sage and having that unconditional love for yourself. And if you can't have that, then you can't pour into others, your family, your friends, your colleagues, your organization. But that takes time. That is not an easy thing to do, to have that unconditional love, especially when you've had some mistakes, some skeletons in the past.
Yeah.
And we all have, but some of us, especially those who've had addiction issues, have more skeletons than others. But being okay, and just, like Buddha says, just it's the next breath, right? We just need it. That's the past. It's done. And yes, we'll learn from it. It's a lesson, but let's just move on and focus on today and this breath right now, and what we can do and how we can impact others. And I do believe that there is good in everybody. I believe in second chances. And unfortunately, it takes kind of a trigger moment for someone to make that choice, to be presented with something that says, oh crap, my life is about to change here, or someone passes away, or you get beat up like I did, and you're just at that crossroad. And it's like, okay, I could continue staying on this path, or I can make a choice, but I still need to make that choice. So anyhow, a lot of paths to go down in this conversation, but I think you and I share some similar backgrounds
Oh,
in
absolutely,
history,
Todd.
and it makes us
There's
who
no
we are today.
coincidences in meeting, right? No, there's no
Yep,
coincidence in it. So it's meant to be, and that's why you have this show, and you've been on my podcast as well, and vice versa here.
right, exactly. And you fell into emotional intelligence, and I did as well. Positive intelligence, which has a huge piece of emotional intelligence. And essentially, it's really just being able to recognize those inner critics, which is what I want to focus on now, really is that inner work, that mindset. So in your mind, Chris, what do you call, how do you describe an inner critic?
Well, an inner critic is always going to be that side of you that you feel that you're just not enough. You don't measure up. It's that voice that's always just subtly saying things to you that, like if you feel like you have imposter syndrome, you're not good enough. If they only knew that you didn't know as much as they thought you did. These are the things that a lot of times that voice that we listen to. But the thing is, we can silence it. Doesn't mean you can shut it off completely, but nonetheless, we don't have to put as much emphasis on it. We also have an inner champion, I like to call it.
Mm.
And we have to do, just like we go to the gym and we work out a certain muscle groups. It's the consistency over time that's going to build that muscle, shock the muscle, and get it to grow and get you where you want to be. It's the same thing with your inner champion. You got to work it, and you got to make the effort to listen to it, and not believe in what the inner critic is saying, because the inner critic can be powerful if you allow it to be. It's accumulation of a lot of things that have been built up since your childhood. A lot of times these self-limited beliefs, that's when they're forged during those child development years, what we observe growing up in our mom, our dad, or other important people around us. And it impacts what we do when we grow up. Like it impacts our confidence level, our self-esteem, how we not only communicate to ourselves, but how we communicate to other people. A lot of people don't realize how they're communicating internally from their inner critic
Mm,
is showing up on how they communicate to other people, either in a passive and or aggressive way. They don't even realize it. And these could be the very things that could be putting a strain on your personal and professional relationships.
absolutely. Yeah, we call those Chris saboteurs in the
Yes.
positive intelligence. Either way you look at it, it's the judge, right? That judge is pointing, you can just see him pointing or her pointing her finger down at you. You're not good enough. Don't try this. You're going to fail. Don't go down this road. It's change. Why would you do that? Imposter syndrome. It's all the things, and we all have them. And here's the thing, Chris, and you touched on it. These never go away. We always have them. But I think what you're talking about and what I do in positive intelligence is learning to identify them and catch them and then shift right into a more peace, calm mindset, which is for us is the sage, right? And that takes time, and that's building your mental muscle. Just as you talked about going to the gym and you work out and you build your muscles, you're building your mental muscle. Our brains are super plastic, and we can lay down new neural pathways. It is absolutely amazing. You know, and I know because we're case studies.
Oh, yeah.
I went from destroying my brain to growing my brain. It is absolutely amazing and beautiful, and you can rewire. But it's about habits. It all comes down to just
It's
making.
habits and it's discipline and consistency, Todd. I always say there's no motivation is fleeting. You have to make the choice even when you don't want to do it. It's the
Mm,
discipline, just doing it, and the consistency that will eventually, get you on track to do what you were exactly saying.
yeah, and you're right because these are all childhood strategies. We had these to survive. We made these right. We made these our mindset to survive, and then we adopt them over time as an adult, and then we allow them to start to sabotage us. So essentially, we don't play into the underlying strengths because there are good, right? I used to be a perfectionist, and there are some great qualities to that, but there are also a ton of bad qualities that will sabotage your performance and your relationships, right?
Right. Hard time delegating or trusting that other people can live up to your level of quality and perfection. And when you don't give people that autonomy, especially if people are working for you or with you, that can strain relationships, no doubt. I grew up with a parent that was a perfectionist, and that showed up in my aggressive behavior, not my communication, but in my behavior.
Yep, same here. No good. Get rid of it. If you have a perfectionist mentality, get rid of it today. It's not serving you well. All right. So inner critics, yes, absolutely. So do you see a connection, Chris, between emotional intelligence, EQ, and peak performers?
Absolutely. The thing about emotional intelligence, it starts with you. You have to understand you, your triggers, the things that now that where those triggers won't get the best of you. Now that, over time through that discipline consistency, you can allow things just like when a thought comes, you just let it come and go, especially if it doesn't serve you. You don't dwell on it. Now, it's easy to say and do as another, but it's through the practice, through the discipline consistency that you'll get better and not allowing the things that don't serve you or the things that are beyond your control to just pass on through. You're focusing on what you can control, and that is you, your intentions. That's what you could control. You could control your communication to yourself and others, your behavior in alignment with your communication in an assertive, not passive aggressive way, your attitude and how you see things happening for you, not to you. So you see challenges, obstacles, and setbacks as a good thing. They are necessary in order to see opportunities disguised in them to create results. Without a challenge, you can't have an opportunity. And without an opportunity, you can't generate a result. So don't resist them. You have control over your emotions and how you respond versus react to other people and situations and your action. Are you focused on the priorities that truly matter? Have you ranked them and value so you value your time to manage it more effectively, know how to delegate accordingly, and be able to get a lot more done in a less period of time. Those things you can control in yourself. You can't control those 5 things in other people. And this is what I've learned over 26 years because I had so much anxiety and anger and frustration. The ADHD didn't help that any. Matter of fact, it escalated it. But I had to learn how to focus on what I can control, and that is me. Those 5 things and letting go of those same 5 things in other people and situations. So over the last 20 something years now, I don't operate from expectations. People say, Chris, what are your expectations of this, or that? And I say, I don't have any expectations. And they're like, well, how do you get things done? I said, I have goals, I have objectives, I break them down very specifically, I rank and prioritize them, except I commit to the process each day to what I can control with them, letting go of what I can't control, trusting the process that whatever is outside of my control right now will come into my control to reach the objective. I treat it like a puzzle. If I have a 100-piece puzzle and I only have 12 pieces, I only focus on those 12 pieces. I trust that the other pieces will come in time that once in my control, I can complete the puzzle. So I operate from intentions, not expectations.
Man, speaking my language, there's so many things I want to pull out there. We'll be right back after a quick message. Hey, it's Todd again. Right now, leaders are facing unparalleled challenges with burnout, disengagement, and rising stress across our teams. And that's why mental fitness matters more than ever. Mental fitness is the ability to respond to pressure with clarity and confidence instead of stress, negativity, or self-doubt. It's about building that self-command, especially when it matters most. Through the Positive Intelligence Program, or PQ for short, I work with leaders and teams to reduce burnout, strengthen resilience, and create a culture where people feel supported, engaged, and capable of performing at their best. This neuroscience-backed program helps teams shift from reactive to resilient and turns change into a catalyst for growth and innovation. Look, I've been practicing PQ for years, and it fundamentally changed how I lead, work, and live. It's transformed my life. If you're curious whether PQ could support you or your team, I invite you to visit toddbertsch.com to learn more about this transformational program. Now, back to the show. Man, this is so aligned with positive intelligence, and one of the core messages of positive intelligence is finding the gift and opportunity in every given situation, every scenario. And you just said it. Without a challenge, there's not an opportunity, right? And I just heard one of my daily focuses today on the app this morning driving into work was, when you come into a challenging situation or you have a conflict, that is an opportunity to build your mental muscle, to strengthen, to practice, right? So everything is an opportunity, but I think where a lot of people struggle, and Chris, maybe you experienced this too, because when I had those, I call them my bad years or my foggy gray years, I had a temper and I had no patience. So I didn't have the space, and therefore I didn't have the ability to choose my response, because boom, knee jerk, 0 to 10 like that. So now I have the space, right? So I can choose, which gave me freedom to now choose my response or not respond, right? To just take it in, to be at peace and calm with the situation, not be judgmental, and just be discerning and empathetic and full of gratitude. It's a whole different way of living, but that takes time, right, to build that muscle. But I think a lot of it comes down to space, which is time. And I think if we can buffer in some space, so we're not just back to back to back to back all day long, because any curveball is then going to stress us out.
It's just that, and that's inevitable, right? There's always going to be something outside your control. So if you can be proactive, it doesn't mean you know exactly when it's going to happen, but that when if you're prepared, that when it does happen, you know how to respond, not react.
Right. Exactly. I want to talk about something that you mentioned a lot, Chris, which is operating in the solution versus the problem. What does that look like day to day?
Well, it kind of ties back to what I shared earlier. Why a lot of people, operate from angst and frustration, anger, and have anxiety, stress is because immediately they attach themselves to the control they can't control, and that is other people and situations. So if somebody came to you and said, "Hey, Todd, you got to get this objective done by the end of the week," and now you're looking at the end of the week, it looks like it's like, oh my God, this is going to be impossible. There's so many things outside of my control here. I got these other things I got to do. I got, I have a family, and I got, and all of a sudden you're just like this immediate feeling of overwhelmness can come over because all of a sudden you're attached to the outcome. Now, I know it's easy to say and do as another, because this was not easy for me to do and to break this habit and this pattern that I had become accustomed to. This is how I grew up. I always reacted, and I always constantly was in this fight or flight state. That's how I lived. I didn't know any better.
Mhm.
But when I realized that, when I say to myself, okay, this has to get done by Friday. Okay, what can I control? What can I not control? So what I will do is I will look at what has to get done, and then I will break it down into what I can control right now. And then I will break down those times that, based upon what value I assign to whatever task that I have to do to accomplish it. I will only focus on what I can control. Then I will park it and then move on to something else in my control. So I'm always not attaching myself to the outcome. I can still see what I'm looking to accomplish, but I'm not attaching myself emotionally to it. I'm now attaching myself to the process. So
Mhm.
it's trusting that process and allowing myself to have all, 100% clarity, calmness, and focus on what I can control, and knowing that each hour, each day, each week, depending upon how long you have to get something done, will bring other things into my control, as long as I'm delegating appropriately and all the things that we just talked about to reach that objective. Now, does that mean sometimes things don't get done, or things are so up beyond your control that it may not happen? Sure. And that's not an easy thing to swallow. But nonetheless, sometimes that happens. We still have to trust the bigger picture in life, in business. Because when it's all said and done, everything always comes out in the wash for the best. We just sometimes can't see it that way at the moment. This is why even through positive intelligence, you have to see things for what they are, not what you think they should be,
Mhm.
for what they are. Doesn't mean you're conforming. It means you're adapting to what is, trusting the process, and giving it your best in that moment to lead to those results. That's what I had to rewire in my brain over 3.5 years to learn how to do. And was it easy? No. But through the discipline and consistency, even to this day, I still do this every day. I never take anything for granted, because I could easily, if I became complacent, slip back to the old Chris, because I could think, well, I've been doing this for so long. I don't need to do this anymore. I don't need to meditate. I don't need to journal. I don't need to get up at a certain time. I don't need to make my bed. I don't need to no, I have to do these things every day with an ADHD mind, with, an addictive personality, in order to be not only good to myself, but to be an example and a resource for others that are struggling to make those changes to do for themselves. So that is it's my purpose. It's my purpose to myself, and the legacy I choose to leave, not only for my family, but for my clients, my industries I serve, just people in general.
Yeah, absolutely. And it comes down to the infinite game. It's never over. And that's the one
It's
thing
never
that I
over.
learned that my coach harped on me, Chris, for many years, was embracing the journey. And I think that's what you're talking about. Because just like you,
Absolutely.
I was consumed by the checklist, right? I'm a checklist guy. I got to check it off. And so consumed with the outcome that I wasn't really enjoying the journey. That's where the gold's at. that's where the stress is at. So if you can learn to just enjoy that, and yes, you're still goal oriented, you still have a high bar, you're still a high performer. It doesn't mean you're soft or weak. It just means that you're not so focused on the end, and you're embracing and enjoying all the steps, the process, the learning, the failures of getting there. Because then when you get to the end, you're not going to be lost. It's like, what do I do next? Because you're so used to that continual learning, that infinite game until the game is done. We're just continually learning and growing. And I love what you said, Chris, because you can do all this work, but you need to continue to do all this work. I'm the same way. It's like, I could easily, I've been doing this, I rewired my brain, I'm at Jedi master level, but man, the judge, the saboteurs are still there. And sometimes they do take control. And I'm like, I need to get back on that horse. But here's the thing that most people falter on is not being able to get back on the horse. Like, especially with the perfectionist syndrome. It's like, oh, well, it wasn't perfect, so why even do it, right? Well, you can get back on that horse, celebrate, take a small step, a small action, get that hit of dopamine so you can get that drive to start going. But don't let it just fall off the map. You can always get back on, but just because you've done the work doesn't mean you're done. This is never done. So you have to, again, embrace it, the whole journey. You have to enjoy the work. Otherwise, it's going to feel like a job that you hate. So yeah, I just wanted.
That's just it, because there's going to be once you reach the outcome, yes, you're going to celebrate and enjoy the victory, whatever that is, and now you're off to the next task. And that's how life is. It's a series of situations, tasks, and it's how you choose to respond or react to it. Either way, and remember, it's a choice. And a lot of times we've been conditioned. Especially if you had asked me this 26 plus years ago, I would have said, there is no choice. This is how it is. And I have no other choice other than to respond from anger and frustration and to fight and claw my way through things instead of choosing to see things for what it is, not what I think it should be, and do it from a place of calmness and clarity and focus. And that doesn't come naturally to somebody like me. And this is why I have to do these certain things every morning. They're like habits. And it doesn't matter where I'm at. I could be traveling a different time zone. Right. I still do it.
Good for you, man. Yeah, you have to. And this bleeds into leadership and how it affects organizations. Chris, I'm reminded of this thought of leaders typically don't rise to the occasion. They fall to habit. And when your habit is to react, then you elevate stress for yourself and everyone on your team. But when your habit is to pause, you regulate. And now you create stability. That, my friend, is the secret sauce.
Right there, you just said the key word, Todd. And I'm sure it applies to positive intelligence, just like EQ overall. It's regulate. You have to learn how to be aware of your own emotions and others, and be able to regulate. And that's what it is. You're regulating. It's okay to have a negative emotion. There's nothing wrong with having a negative emotion. No. That's just the body and mind saying you got something unresolved. And it's not because somebody cut you off in traffic this morning to work why you're angry. It goes deeper than that. If you really want to drive it down to the root cause, believe me, it's something a lot deeper that is accumulated over time. That somebody cutting you off in traffic was just a trigger. That's all it was.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, how do you see communication? Let's talk about communication for a little bit, because I know that you're an expert in this, and you talk a lot about this in your keynotes and in your consulting with businesses. Where do you see communication breaking down most inside organizations?
This is an area that a lot of organizations take for granted. They don't realize that the lack of communication or not getting better at communicating one-to-one, one-to-few, one-to-many is costing them millions, if not billions of dollars, depending upon the size of your business or whatever industry you're in. a lot of the problems and challenges we have in the world in general, in our relationships, both on a personal and professional level, always stem back to communication. Either we communicate based on assumptions and speculation. This is why expectations go unfulfilled, or that we don't live up to what we expected. And then what ends up happening is we end up deflecting how we feel onto other people or situations. And this is what creates what they call a toxic environment or a workplace culture. And what we don't realize is what we do on the inside reflects outward. So if we're operating from a toxic culture from within, where people are operating from communication based on assumption and speculation, we have passive communicators talking to aggressive communicators and vice versa. All of these things are accumulating and now creating a lack of connection with the audience you're serving, even the industry that you're in. And these could be the cause for a lot of the KPIs or metrics that you're not seeing on your bottom line, in your net profit margin, in your cost of acquisition of new clients or retaining clients. In when you have employees that burn out, then have a lower retention. All of the above. These things are costing you millions and billions of dollars. And yet companies still go back looking for the Band-Aid or looking to find something to justify why they don't want to look at what's really happening. There is so much money that can be made if you are able to now make a commitment into improving your communication on an individual, a team, and then an organizational level, and how that reflects outward. This is why companies like Zappos are so successful, why they're ranked in the top 5 year after year. Now, Zappos is a small online shoe retailer that is owned by Amazon. Amazon was smart enough not to disrupt their original culture, knowing that if they did, they would have turned that asset into not performing at the level that it did when they bought it. They left it as is. They developed their culture from the inside out. They're consistently developing their people, consistently improving their communication. This is why Zappos is known not just for selling a lot of shoes, but they're known for creating experiences. This is why they're ranked in the top 5 for customer service each and every year, because that reflects outward to the people you serve. We don't even realize that's how it works. But a lot of organizations fail to see it that way and constantly are managing these issues of retention and production and efficiency and lack of sales or retention of clients, all of the above. And all of these go back to communication and also understanding your audience. You can't be everything for everyone. And how people process information is not the same way you do. We have different personality, we have different generations, we have different cultural and ethnic types. So when we can truly understand that and be able to find within the audience we serve, what is the bulk of them? What if we were to make an avatar of that? What does that look like? And now if we could adapt our communication through our website, through our social media, through our marketing collateral, through our email marketing, through when we network, and through if we're on podcast or radio shows, when we're exhibiting at trade shows, through that cohesion and consistency, that's what can alter that deeper connection of them processing things better, seeing that you understand their challenges that can be better, the results they seek and don't have. It's not about just your product or service and features and benefits. That's what reduces the number of touch points to convert and close more business and now sustain it to get referrals, and then hopefully now bundle things to now upsell to grow your business. A lot of organizations just don't even think about that. They just think, hey, let's go out and just sell more and do this. And they're just managing the problem and not getting to the foundation of it. And that's EQ, and then the communication that executes on it.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you, Chris. And I've seen it firsthand, and I've done it. I've been a part of kind of that transformation and really understanding your people and having those authentic conversations and multiple touch points, right? But how do you get companies? And you just said like many companies just throw a Band-Aid on, which might be a wellness program or a meditation app or pizza party or, going out for beers after, happy hour or something. How do you get companies or organizations to see this as a root problem and start to address it? Because there's all kinds
It's
of benefits. We just talked about
yeah.
it. Like it's endless. So how do
It's
you
not an
come
easy
in?
task. It's not an easy task, Todd, but what I've done over 26 years, and this is obviously the technology has helped me tremendously now to continue to get the message out there. But what it is that you got to consistently connect with them based upon how they process information. You got to get into their subconscious mind, especially the key decision makers, the people that make the final decisions, the CEO, the CFO, the CTO, whoever, depending upon the size of the organization. So as a professional speaker, I do keynotes and breakouts a lot, the breakouts for continuing education. And it's through even more than the keynotes when I do breakouts I'm able to now get into the heads of certain people that are in that audience, and then something clicks to say, man, we've been doing it this way for 10, 15 years and nothing is changing. We've had we've had multiple sales trainings. We've had these things we've done. We brought in these types of this type of talent, and yet still we're still managing the same problems. Nothing is changing. So once that awareness clicks, and someone who can now, can champion it, that's where you start to chip away and start making a difference. So this is how I've been able to influence, not persuade or convince, because I'm not in the business of convincing or persuading people. I'm in the business of empowering them through influence to get them to see for themselves. So when they commit, and now we're able to do a workshop, we're able to do consulting, coaching, and over time, as we drip this, they begin to see the results reflected in their KPIs. And as you and I know, numbers don't lie. Okay. Words can be manipulated and lied about. Numbers are real, they're factual. You can't dispute them. So when they start seeing, oh my God, our sales are going up, our retention is going up, all these other KPIs are going up. So everything we've been doing, what you've shared and what we've been committed to, that's what's making this happen. Yes. That, but again, it's easy because we're always, as human beings, we're conditioned for that quick fix. We're looking for that magic solution in a box that marketers are very clever at spinning and trying to sell you on, and you buy into it every time, especially not only individuals, but companies. The reality is those things don't work. Everything is different for different types of situations. So it's not one size fits all. We have to learn to adapt to what is this is where we are, and here's what we got to do within our situation, our people, to make it better. This is why I'm not in the business, me personally, with my services. I don't offer anything cookie cutter. Everything I do is customized. Now, can I scale that? That's hard to do. So I get it. From growing a business like that, that's hard to do. But the good news is I'm not in a business where I'm looking to scale at this point in my career. I'm in a business where I'm looking to help those that do want to scale. And now I know the model that I'm using is effective because I can customize each business entity I'm working with on that individual basis, so to speak.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think if we can just find who the influencer is within the organization that has, the ears or the ability to make those decisions, to at least do a pilot. Like, let's do a test run here. Let's take a small cohort of your leaders and let's see if we can move the needle, if we can ramp up the KPIs or whatever metrics that you're looking at. And when you see that proof, when you see that change, then it's a lot easier, right, to just take it through the rest of the organization. So, well, I hope more organizations realize that these band-aids are costing millions and billions of dollars and they're just not working. We see it. We see it in the Gallup numbers. We see it in the SHRM reports. Burnout, stress, disengagement, everything just keeps going up, and up.
It
And
keeps going up.
I mean, you
Yeah.
can just see it. You don't need the reports. You can see the people in the
You can
organization
see it. And here's
exhausted.
another thing, Todd, that a lot of times people don't want to hear, and this was something that was hard for me to hear back in the day, because we always want to look like we know we always want to know that we look like we know what we're doing. We always want to look like that. I'm in this role because I got promoted here because I make things happen. But what we don't realize, it doesn't matter who you are. I don't care if you're a CEO or what title you are. We don't know everything. And we got to be open to knowing that sometimes we got to put our egos aside and not allow that to protect our own ego or protect that. I don't want to expose any weaknesses to anybody. But see, when we don't do that, you're not encouraging your people to open up. You're encouraging your people to shut down because now they're afraid to expose themselves, fearing that you're going to think they're incompetent or don't know what they're doing. So they're just going to float under the radar, do the bare minimum. You're not creating a psychologically safe workplace. That's what's got to happen first. You got to be, it's not that you're exposing your limitations and weakness. We're just saying, hey, we can get better. I can get better. And when your people know that you can get better, then they know they can get better. That's where, when you get the buy-in, that's where the magic happens.
You just said it. And oh my gosh, I feel like, Chris, this year alone, every single episode comes back to two themes: curiosity, which ironically we haven't really talked about on this episode, and psychological safety. It really everything comes back to that, creating that safe space where people feel able to take a risk, to stretch, to get out of their comfort zones a little bit without fear of judgment. And that takes the leader, right? The person at the top getting vulnerable and saying, look, I'm not perfect either, and I'm failing and I'm learning, and you can too, right? It's a culture shift. And that's where you see really great cultures. And I would imagine if we were to dig into Zappos, they probably have a very safe space within their organization, very inclusive, full of curiosity, where everybody has the opportunity to contribute. Right? So there you have it, folks. Create that safe space, and you're one step further. Chris, any other, I know everybody wants a magic pill, right? Especially as, we're coming off the first of the year, all these diets. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. Just take this pill and you'll lose 50, 100 pounds and you'll be just fine. You don't have to do the work.
Oh, that's Ozempic, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And there's no repercussions to that, right? Oh yeah, there's many of them.
We don't know yet.
Yeah, we're starting to see some of it as we speak.
Right.
But yeah, here's what I always like to leave the audience. It's a statement. And again, it's not something that's a quick fix. It's something that you have to let it sink in and let it become you. You have to be it to become it, to do it, to now, have different and better results. So you have to think differently, to be it, to become it, to do it, and then have different and better results. I always like to say, give without expectation. Now, when I say that, you're not giving without expectation to please and enable other people, keep them dependent on you, stuck, stagnant. No, that's not good. Giving without expectation is learning to be the example of that every day for yourself. Whether if you're a parent, whether if you're a spouse, whether if you're the CEO of your company, whether if you are whatever title, whatever position, you are being consistent in what you can control: your communication assertively, your behavior assertively, not passive aggressive, attitude happening for you, not to you, emotions that you respond versus react to other people and situations, and taking massive action. Give without expectation from empathy and kindness. Be the example of it, and be resourceful, empowering others to do for themselves. Now, I'm not saying you can't do anything for anybody, but what I'm saying is don't do it from a place of pleasing and enabling. Give without expectation, receive without resistance. And what that means is when it comes back to you from somewhere else, if it serves you personally, professionally, serves your team, serves your business, serves your clients, whoever, if it serves in any positive way, don't Don't deflect it. Don't say no. You don't have to do that for me. It's okay that I did that favor for me, but you don't have to do that for me. You're you're negating yourself and actually not doing good for yourself, but you're doing that for other people that you serve because you can't give what you don't have. And too many people give from an empty cup. And you can't give from an empty cup. It's like the oxygen mask on an airplane. What does the flight attendant say? Put it on yourself before you put it on your child. But we've been conditioned, oh, we got to put it on our child. You can't give what you don't have. Be the example for yourself. It's not selfish. And be the example and be resourceful. So when you can give without expectation, receive without resistance, it creates what I like to call the law of prosperity abundance. It allows you now to give more and to receive more. And when that becomes contagious, it kind of opens up things for the better. Does that mean things are going to never be bad? You're never going to have setbacks? No, you're going to probably have more because, again, remember, you can't have more opportunities and then you can't have more results from it if you don't have more challenges. So you'll probably have more challenges, but you'll begin to look at them differently to what we talked about today. And you'll be farther ahead than a lot of the other people that continue to stay stuck, independent, and operating from these old ways of thinking that keep them in the place that they're in.
I love it, man. I absolutely love it. That is a master class in how to live and lead right there, honestly. Chris, we're coming down to the close of the show here, but we do have the lightning bolt round. These are quick, one hits, one or two word answers. Here we go. What's currently igniting your spark right now?
Now, what's currently igniting my spark is seeing the best in everybody that I touch. You all have gifts, and it's bringing out your best. It's not about being the best. It's about being your best.
I love it. If you could describe leadership in one word, what would that be?
Self-service. Be the example. On this word, I guess one word. That's going to be.
We'll take self. I like that. Oxygen mask.
Yeah, oxygen. You can just self-service is a hyphen, and I don't know if that's a word. So you can't give what you don't have, and too many people and too many businesses serve others from empty cups, and this is why we don't have great service.
Yep. Be selfish. All right. Do you have a favorite leadership book, Chris? Something that you've gifted away more than anything else that you love?
Oh my God, there is so many.
I know there's so many. Is there one?
So many books.
One or two.
I would just say that again. There's so many, but I would just always go back to the one book that helped me. That also got me at Think and Grow Rich. It's been around for since the 30s, 40s, whenever. Go back and continue to read that book. You can always get something from it. And so many books about leadership and about success draw upon what was in that book. And so I can name lots of books out there, but that would be, if I had to roll it up to that one book, Think and Grow Rich.
Okay, awesome. That hasn't been mentioned on the show before, so I love it. Yeah. We'll add that to the show notes, and I haven't read it either. All right, Chris. Well, thank you for the lightning round. You have an opportunity to leave one closing message or one powerful quote. What's on your heart right now? Mic drop moment that you want to leave us with.
You want to make a difference in your business, and you want to make a difference in your family, a difference in your community. You have to be the example. You have to do this for yourself. It's not selfish to serve yourself. Serve yourself and be the example. The right people will be there to be influenced by it to grow with you. The people that are not meant to grow with you will now move away. So sometimes it might shed some of the people that have been holding you down, and that can be both on a personal and professional level. You only have you. And you're only responsible for you. You can't control other people and situations. Be the example.
Be the example. I love it. Well, thank you, my friend. This has been a great conversation. Thank you for getting vulnerable and sharing all of your expertise with us. I wish you all the best, and I look forward to continuing our conversation, Chris.
Absolutely. Count on it, Todd. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for spending time with us on the Bolt Podcast. If today's conversation sparked something for you, please share it with someone who could use it. That ripple is how we create impact and light the way for others. Remember, growth doesn't come from giant leaps. It comes from small, intentional shifts that build over time. Ignite your spark, fuel the fire, and light the way. We'll see you next time, my friends.